The
Wow.
band is back together.
It's a lot of episodes.
Yeah. 31 flavors of episodes.
Ooh, good reference there.
I like it. Ooh.
You know, Carson, Brandon and we tried to hold the movie thing together while you were out the last couple of weeks. It was awful. It was like so forced, and we just could not do it.
So what you're
Yeah,
saying, you missed me. That's good.
We missed you. We
Absence
absolutely.
makes the heart grow fonder, I hear.
Yes.
That's right. Well, we should probably welcome everybody instead of just continuing our conversation amongst the three of us.
Oh, you mean there's somebody else here?
I mean, hopefully there's somebody. We had a lot of people registered today. It was good. Must be everyone knew Carson was coming back.
I think so.
Yeah.
So
they want to see me mess up.
So anyway, yes, welcome to everybody. Please jump in the chat. Let us know that you're here, where you're from. We have I think a really interesting interactive topic today, which is what lessons we have learned in 2023 so far, and what we see coming, which I think is going to provide some interesting discussion. So definitely want to get input from everybody today. And also, I want to welcome everybody on the podcast. And we're close to getting some milestones on the podcast, which I understand as well. So that's really cool as well. And welcome James from Atlanta. So good to see you.
James and I have a made up word that we use together, and it's called Fagar, because we tend to get together on Fridays for a cigar.
I like that.
It's our Fagar day. Yep. And Dave in from Indianapolis. Welcome.
So, Carson, I also tried to hold the fort on the ChatGPT dad joke while you were gone. I think I lost twice. I think Brandon won twice. So that just shows you how crappy a job I did. So again, now that you're back.
Maybe I just upped my game.
It could be. See, I always like to put the odds in my favor. I asked ChatGPT a variety of different things, like give me the 20 funniest dad jokes, and then I pick one that actually makes me laugh. So I try to put the odds in my favor. It's not really fair, but I don't always play fair. So
do you put in one that can beat Brandon? Do you put that in there, or do you filter?
You know what? That might be the one that I pose next one. I feel pretty good about the one I have ready for today, actually.
All right. Well, then why don't you go ahead and start, Carson?
I will. So I asked ChatGPT to provide a dad joke to get us kicked off here today. And today's joke: what did the grape say when it got stepped on? Nothing. It just let out a little whine.
Brandon, do you need to regroup? Do you need to regroup and come up with another one?
Well, actually, it made me think of a food-related one that I can kind of keep the theme going at least. What do you call a cow that can't give milk? An utter failure.
That's pretty good. That's actually pretty good. I might call that a draw.
Yeah,
I can throw a bonus one in there. You want a bonus one? I'll keep the food thing going. Why did the dog jump in the pool? Because he was a hot dog.
I mean, that kind of lowered the quality. I think the first one was
better. I know. I should have stopped while I was ahead.
Yeah, that diluted the effectiveness of your original joke. But
yeah,
it's okay.
I like Brandon triplets inside the comments there. What's Yoda's last name?
Leahy. She got extra points if you say it like Leahy.
So that's incorporating the movie theme back in. That's good.
Yeah, there we go. I tell you what, I mean, Butch must not be here today. I don't have my automatic vote from Butch, but so
I'm going to call it a draw. I'm going to call it a draw. I think they were both outstanding. And we're going to call it a draw. There we go.
Bravo.
Perfect.
Let's talk about
let's get to the fun stuff. Yeah. Show number 31. We should be excited about this topic too.
So what we want to do is we're going to talk first of all about what's something that we've learned, each of us have learned over the first 4 months of this year related to social selling. Ideally, Carson, your video is getting
Hey, I checked all the settings. I closed all my stuff. Sorry.
I love it.
I'm back from the
Back
past.
to the future. Carson's
There's your
back to the future.
reference. Yes,
That's good. I like that one. Thank you, Sophia.
that is good.
All right, I got to get back to
Okay.
For those of you listening,
I was
Carson
gonna say
was
the
streaming
podcast.
live from 1972. Judging by the court.
Yeah, for the podcast, Carson is pixelated
Yeah.
and not getting much better. And
Yeah, having some video challenges. Not sure what it is, but I didn't have time to reboot because I owe it to you to be on time. So here I am.
right.
Sorry, it's me.
All right. Yeah, you're loud and clear on sound. So what we're going to start with here is what would have we learned in the first 4 months of this year? Ideally, something that maybe we didn't expect. If we were to go back in the first of the year, what? Carson.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Was that
We
Yoda?
Microsoft-
I mean, it was a disc in the mail. It was a disc in the mail. That's what you're supposed to use, right?
Hey
Did it
guys,
say Commodore 64 or something on the
man.
computer?
We're supposed to get better at shows as we do more of them, not worse.
Yeah.
We're the struggle bus today. Glad
We
we got
promise.
everybody being patient with us.
All right. Brandon, you go first. So what is a lesson or what have you learned in the last 4 months about social that maybe you wouldn't have expected back in, January here when we started?
Yeah, I think here's an observation, and of course, ChatGPT is going to come to the top of our conversations, but maybe from a little different perspective. ChatGPT made it easier for people to use social more often, more posts, and I believe there is an uptick. I haven't seen the data yet, but just from my own observation, there seems to be an uptick, pretty significant one, of people actually publishing content than before.
Are you talking about publishing comments or just content in general, posts?
Content in general. I've noticed people that, and again, it could be that I didn't see it before. It wasn't in my news feeds, but I do see new faces coming into my news feed on posting a little bit more often than they did before. And I think it's because all of a sudden it was, hey, ChatGPT, just go ask ChatGPT to write a post for you on whatever, and you go in, you say, write a LinkedIn post on whatever, and it puts it right in your hands, and there you go. So I do believe that there's more adoption into that, and I think it'll continue to evolve into things like comments. It should evolve into more articles inside of LinkedIn as well.
So that's an interesting insight, right? What was the stat that 1% or 2% of people actually post on LinkedIn? Like some small percentage, right?
Yeah, LinkedIn stat before was about 1% posted on a regular basis. And the last time I looked, regular basis meant at least 2 times per month.
So it'd be interesting to see two things. One is, does that number 1% go up because of what you just said? And also the people that were posting, are they posting more frequently because it's easier to create content that goes out there? Are you seeing people post more frequently? Are you seeing some of the people that you were seeing before, post once a day or more often than what they were doing before?
It seems like it. And of course, look, I mean, I want to be honest with this. Like, it could be my own lens. I am looking for it, or I'm paying attention to it. But it does appear to me that I've got new faces popping into my news feed, people I've been connected to, but I didn't see them post very much before. And I think the other thing is I've seen a decrease in views over the last, and I commented on someone else's post the other day because they were asking about, they're like, hey, observation, views per post are going down and engagements per post are going down. Do you agree? And I agreed wholeheartedly. It was probably 6 weeks or so ago. My views of my post just went, just dropped. And I've heard other people say this before. There's random times where all of a sudden their views just tank. And I don't worry about it, because really most of my conversation creation comes through commenting anyway. But it is just an observation that they dropped about 6 weeks ago by like 80% normal.
Wow.
My views.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they start picking back up.
Okay. Interesting. Carson, what have you seen, I guess, in the first 4 months of the year?
Well, through all this haze of fuzziness, I view the world.
It looks like you're in an aquarium. It's like you're in a little aquarium with water and stuff.
Yeah, there you go. I look at this year, and what I've learned the most, actually, a lot from this show, things that I've adopted, and where I've made the most progress with certain dream prospects has actually been on more the commenting side, and it's not been getting, the direct message reply. And candidly, a lot of these executives are sharing with me like, hey, I'm getting thousands of messages, hundreds a day, and I could never keep up with my LinkedIn inbox. So frankly, I've got a higher probability to connect if I'm constantly commenting and or tagging these folks and things that maybe our organizations are doing together. So that's been a big lesson learned. Number two, a big one that Brandon shared earlier in the year was just around like using pictures in a strategic way. So like, I was traveling recently, hence why I've missed the last couple of shows, and making posts about not only your journeys, but what you're learning in those journeys. And anytime that you can tag and celebrate colleagues and customers and things of that stature, those things are huge. People on LinkedIn will gravitate toward that, not just in your own company, but also in your target company. If you're tagging those organizations, it's on a panel with an organization not long ago, and celebrating what we did with that organization, and the panel discussion that our executives did with that organization went over like gangbusters on LinkedIn. The last one, I'd be remiss not to point out ChatGPT. Dave, you made a really good comment here that I think we should hone in on. It helps with a framework that you can then personalize. What I think ChatGPT, what AI and automation and all these things are going to do, and I think we've talked about this a little bit, it is going to make some folks who want to play this lazy. It's going to saturate our beloved LinkedIn and social channels with a lot of garbage. And it makes us, as noble knights of the selling game, we got to up our game. And like Dave said, use it as a framework. What I found a lot of value in this year is going back. I don't have a lot of time. I have a full-time day job. I've got a wife and 3 kids. I write books. I don't have a ton of time. So what I've started doing is I'll go back and I'll take transcripts of old video interviews that I've done or podcast shows that I've done, and I can feed those transcripts into ChatGPT and have it write me a summary or a post based on that. But I have to massage that. I can't just post that willy-nilly. And I think that's the important delineation that we have to have. These things can be a guide. These AI tools, they're not always going to be dead on the money. They don't have situational fluency. They can't read the room, but we can. And so if I can say, ChatGPT, write a transcript, from this transcript, write a post or write a blog, and then I have that content and I can massage it, it can be the best free editor out there. And so that's been another key learning for me this year.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question here too that James dropped in here, and before I give you my lesson learned for the year so far is James is asking, could the perception of reality of more new posts and drop in views be because of updates on LinkedIn to the algorithm and things like that? Have you heard, Carson, are you aware of anything or anything like that algorithm wise that could affect any of those things?
I dare not speculate, but I will be happy to ask.
Okay. I know there was supposedly some form of an algorithm, or there was an algorithm update coming, but I don't know if that actually took place. Go
I'm
ahead,
calling
Brandon.
an audible here. I think Brandon's got something he needs to throw in, and then he needs to step away.
Yeah, I'm sorry about it. With a little family emergency, I got text coming in. I've got to go on pickup daughter duty. Um, yeah, one of the things Carson made me think of, you're talking about photos. I think the other thing I've seen more of, and it's been a trend, I think, over the past year, is more human posts. Maybe you want to call it personal type of post. And I'm not talking like, pictures of food and stuff like that, like we would call Facebook type of post. But I think, one of the things that I've said, I truly believe is that if LinkedIn is like a networking event, think about when we're talking with people at networking events, we're chit-chatting, we're getting to know people, what percent of those conversations are business focused and which part of those are focused on more of what I would call the humanity side of things. And I'm seeing that translate into LinkedIn a lot more. And here's a good example. I said that my views got suppressed about 6 weeks ago. And over the weekend, I posted a picture of my morning drink that I do. On Sundays, I make this drink with like oranges and lemons and garlic and all this stuff. And I posted about it and I shared about, how I hit burnout and really knocked myself on my butt for a while back in 2010, and how I've been focusing more as an entrepreneur on trying to be healthier and be on top of it. And it kind of went through the roof. And I had 3 people that I didn't, 2 of them were second connections. One of them was a first connection that I didn't really know, sent me DMs afterwards, asking for the recipe, asking how I use it, asking if I had different alternatives to it and things like that. And it just created a lot of really great conversation. And it wasn't about the job, it was more about my life and humanity. So I have seen a uptick in that type of content and a lot more conversation around it.
So more personal, less business is what I'm hearing you say.
Well, and yes, but it's not just personal for the sake of being personal either. Right. I mean, in my case, right. It was,
human, it was, better word.
Yeah, it was more human. It was more about, taking care of my body, taking care of my mental health, my physical health, things like that. So everybody, I am so sorry, but yes, Colby, thank you for that in there. I really don't want our 10-year-old sitting around waiting at school. She had after school play rehearsal, so there's no bus, there's nothing else. So I am out of here. I appreciate you all. Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. Make sure Carson gets 1 or 2 movies in there.
Yeah, I'll take care. I'll keep an eye on things. All right.
Perfect.
See you, Brandon. Thanks. So, yeah, what I learned, what I think, and Carson, I'm definitely interested in your take on this, is especially doing a lot of training that you do inside Microsoft and other, is at the beginning of the year and even last year, when we would talk about social selling, especially with sales organizations, established sales organizations, was almost like, well, I'll go try that on the side. I'll go try that and see if that really works. But then I'll go back to my quote day job of traditional selling. Now, when we have conversations, what I'm seeing more of is that the use of social, the use of digital, whatever you want to call it, is becoming accepted as an accepted strategy just in the overall DNA of the sales process and the sales motion in general. So it's not this thing over on the side. It's not just sort of like, well, I'm going to go try that out, but then I'm going to go back to what I'm doing. It's actually starting to become into the DNA of the sales motion. And I think that's, to me, I hope we've had a part in that, but I think that's a huge, huge step in seeing this as not just as a separate thing, but something that really is just part of any B2B sales motion that you're actually doing.
I think we can absolutely take a little credit. I mean, anytime you're building an appraisal, you always want to call out some of the contributions that you made to key outcomes. So there is an outcome, more permeation of social selling in the mainstream, and it's all happened since we've been doing this show. So yeah, I think we take a small amount of credit. But in all seriousness, Tom, to your point, I think what we're seeing is this, and I couldn't agree more, but it never shows up exactly, I think, the way that maybe you originally envision or think that it will. Where I'm seeing it pop up is, when we're having conversations and let's say we're stuck, with a target company or prospect, or, we are trying to understand all the parameters that a company is grappling with. I'm seeing people on my team reference like, oh, well, I looked them up on LinkedIn. I got connected with them on LinkedIn. I sent them a message on LinkedIn, or I saw on their post that they posted about this. And, they posted about our competitor, or I saw I feel like a proud father when I see this, because I'm like, yay. I mean, these folks are adopting social selling when they've always been these proud enterprise sales professionals. And there's room for both. There's room for that caliber of enterprise sales professional that negotiates a deal and knows how to orchestrate a lot of resources and a full team, but also leveraging social selling because it's going to complement and augment what you're doing. I think people are saying, how can I get better? How can I level up? And social selling is part of that. And, I'm to your point, I'm seeing it more and more because when we're having conversations and even sharing in chats, I was on a call a couple of weeks back and we were looking at, a couple of new contacts, new people that had started in an organization. I think, a couple of times on this show, I've talked about Humantic AI, and, there are tools like that where it will do a quick comb of their social profile or profiles and, basically tell you based on their writing, what their personality profile would be, how you can meet them where they are better, show up more informed. And we're starting to use these things regularly. Databook, another great one. You start working with a new target prospect and you can go out there and see when's their fiscal year end, who are their competitors, who are some of their key stakeholders. And anytime I'm trying to break ground or get unstuck, that kind of data and intel is very valuable and it's at your fingertips. It saves you time. You can work smart while you're also working hard.
Yeah, and all the way along, I think part of the adoption is, you talk about it a lot, is increasing the probability of success of what I'm doing. I think that companies are seeing that using social, and not just LinkedIn, LinkedIn's obviously maybe in the center of all that, but just using social and the social aspect of it increases probability. And probably even tying back to what we were just talking about a minute ago of seeing that, building that human part of it increases the probability, increases the reach. It just, there's a lot of, I guess, tentacles that come out from this that people are starting to see the value of, whereas before they kind of thought it was, I don't know, I won't call it gimmick, but it was almost something that shouldn't be a key part of the strategy.
No, it's a good call. And what's interesting, like we were talking about ChatGPT and some of these other things, like it's not just to write posts, right? It's also, I can ask ChatGPT to give me 10 conversation starters for a customer, and I can paste in their profile, or I can paste in some elements of their company report or a recent announcement, like give me some talking points. And these things that in the moment that they can arm us with something that just make us show up better or more informed in that moment, that's the real value. And I think that's been a big learn this year from a social selling perspective is we're beholden to the resources and tools that are out there. We're all going to use them differently. We're all going to use different tools. But I think the key is to gravitate towards those tools that we've talked about this before, help us show up better with more value to customer conversations. And if a tool like ChatGPT can give me 10 potential talking points to start a conversation with a customer, or can help me write components of an email, then I think that's where it comes into play. Dave, you're on fire out there today. I love your comment too, about copying and pasting AI is very inauthentic. I think you nailed it. We have to keep authenticity at the heart of all the things that we're doing amidst these tools, because we're going to see more and more of these tools become prominent, more of these sales tasks that become automated, which frankly gives us more time. But we also have to make sure that, with great power comes great responsibility, as Spider-Man taught us. And we've got to make sure that we're doing these things responsibly, and that we're not sacrificing the way that we show up with customers and build real relationships for the sake of just spitting off a bunch of garbage that an AI tool gave us. It's not authentic.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good to hear that Brandon is already in the parent pickup
Brandon
line.
Lee, he's out there.
Yeah, he should go live from the parent pickup line. But I realized, and unfortunately, when he left, I think he may have cut off all the people on his stream. So I apologize if you got cut off. We have to remember that. We should have
You
left
need
him.
a friend, Tom Burton, today. If you're watching the recording, just make sure to connect with Tom Burton.
That's right.
He's the only mainstay of this show. Tom now holds the record of most consecutive minutes on social selling for newbies. You saw it here.
I had a couple weeks back in December where I wasn't here, and you guys.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. I don't know. We may be even.
Man, most episodes contributed to.
There we go. So let's look ahead. Let's look forward to the remainder of the year. And Carson, what do you think, if you were to kind of look to the future, what do you think the biggest change or the impact will be on related to social selling by the time we get to the end of this year? And what effect it will have, and how's it going to move the needle even more?
That's a crazy question. I mean, there's so many ways that this can go, but I think you're going to continue to see momentum. As you've called out, Tom, you're going to continue to see more people adopting social selling methods because they're seeing the value, they're hearing of the value. And a lot of these tools are becoming more obvious in the ways that they can be used. I've been amazed by how, my team will leverage some of these tools like ChatGPT to ask them about, based on this transcript of this meeting, and, my company's starting to bake some of these capabilities into tools. I mean, full transparency, I'm not trying to make any kind of endorsements here, but my point is you're going to continue to see some of these things become, the intelligence is going to bubble to the top. And so we're going to have so much at our fingertips. I think you're just going to continue to see more and more momentum, more people adopting social selling tactics and technologies. I think you're going to see, to Brandon's point, more momentum on posting and on socials, and more, sad to say, I mean, you're going to see a lot of automated messages that sound even more personalized than they were before, which is going to make it all the more important that we stand out amidst the noise. I think it's timely that you had Bethany on a couple of weeks ago from SendSpark, because, as we find our business decision maker prospects, as we find them becoming more and more inundated with these automated, seemingly personalized messages, we're going to have to find new and better ways to really stand out in their DMs, in their, in their lives. And that's why I think going back to commenting and engaging on their posts, I've hit the notification bell on so many of my target prospects. So I see every time they post, using tools like Fist Bump so that I can react and respond more in the moment to what they care about and what they're talking about, as opposed to just being lost in the shuffle of their instant messages. And then ergo, also finding ways like video where you can stand out, sending video via email, sending video via LinkedIn message, all these things that help us stand out. I think we're going to see the best sellers gravitate toward new methods by which they can meaningfully connect. And frankly, who knows where, some of the possibilities or potential new tools go. I mean, you've seen a lot of shifts in how some of the social platforms are being run and engaging, and how we can leverage groups and, building community, because a lot of the same themes that we talk about, they're just going to look different. How we build community, how we connect, how we stand out amidst the noise, those things will look different, but you will see a rise in that, as you also see a rise in the fallout of all of the automation used poorly.
Yeah, and authenticity, right? And clever use of what you're just talking about, to me, is a lot of clever use of the medium, rather than just being the same old, but using some authenticity and using, like you said, video, or using different things or whatever as kind of clever ways of using the tools that are available. That's going to cause, I think, more you to stand out, versus I agree with what Brandon said, and what you're saying is more people are coming into the party because it's easier to be in the party because of ChatGPT, and it's easier to get posts out. Then the quality then has to start to rise to the surface. And the winners, I believe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Carson, but I think what you're saying is the winners are going to be the ones that can kind of, be a little bit more authentic, use better strategy, and just aren't rotely going through a automation process along the way.
Yeah, and I mean, even just using it effectively, like I was saying, I found some old videos that I had recorded with folks, and you can feed that into YouTube. You can pull the transcript, and you can have it write a synopsis of that. And so some of this content, like I would challenge people to think about how they could repurpose some of this social content in meaningful but authentic ways. Because I think there was a good comment that was made earlier in the chat, like using that as even a pre-editor. I was talking about using it as a free editor, but it's also a pre-editor because it can give you some of this stuff, prompt you to write, and you might inject a couple of things, or it could prompt you to how you might want to repurpose some of this content. And it all goes back to a few things. There's the foundation of your personal brand, which those things can permeate, but there's also how, like, I could ask ChatGPT to give me 10 possible things about sales professionals challenges today. I could give me, have me prompt me with 10 possible things. And maybe that's what I decided to make a post about today. It's my own words. I'm writing it, but it gave me something real time that might prompt me to do something that could be effective and start a provocative conversation. And that's really what it's all about. It's all how you use it. That's a great, one of my favorite movies. It's up on my wall, Color of Money. There's a wonderful song in there from Mr. Eric Clapton. And I think it's very apropos right here. It's in the way that you use it.
God, it's good to have you back.
Good to be back. I missed you guys.
We butchered all of that stuff.
I miss you guys. It's not the same. I feel incomplete. Like, I mean, it's kind of like Jerry Maguire when at the end he says, like, you complete me. And you guys do. I love being in this forum, being in this medium, talking about social selling. And hopefully I made enough movie references today to make up for the last few weeks.
You've done great. So I have a little different take on this, what I think is coming. And Brandon, you're making Brandon proud. So that's good. Well done, Carson, on that.
Beautiful. We miss you, buddy.
So, I've been talking to actually a lot of investors and boards and companies. And there's a theme that I'm seeing develop that has happened the last 90 days, again, driven by AI in general. And that is, how do you make your business more efficient? I mean, if you look at the last several years, especially in sales, and if you look in tech companies or venture funded tech companies, it was always growth at all costs. And yeah, maybe I was spending $5 to get a dollar of revenue, but it didn't matter. I'll just throw money at it. I'll throw money at it. And it was very inefficient. And they might be generating revenue, but it was very costly and it was very inefficient from that perspective. What I'm seeing is a very big shift as a way of saying, how do you make your companies more efficient? And AI is a tool or a catalyst for that to occur. So there's this theme, I think I call it the golden age of efficiency, that seems to be coming more and more into a theme, especially when you're talking to investors and when you're talking to investors and board members. It's going to permeate into the business, right? There's no doubt about it. And when I think of everything that we talk about on this show and everything we've talked about over 31 episodes, a lot of it comes back to, how do you do sales more efficiently? How do you do B2B sales more efficiently? How do you get more out of the resources that you have? How do you, accomplish more with less? All the stuff you talk about, Carson, about probability and all of those types of things. And that's all efficiency, right? Throwing 50 BDRs in a room and say cold call is not very efficient. Now, you might get some revenue out of it. You might get some growth out of it, but it's certainly not very efficient. And so I think with this whole new focus on efficiency, and there's some new, I don't know if you've heard of like some of the new AI tools like Auto GPT and these agents and, digital co-pilots and stuff like that basically can do work for you, these types of things coming, and companies cutting, a third of their OpEx cost and things like that by cutting and putting things into AI. This whole efficiency is in a spotlight. And the reason I bring all of that up is social selling and everything we've talked about, to me, is heart and soul of that, while still building the relationships and the building. So I think we're going to see more and more of an emphasis on how do companies become more efficient, especially in their sales and revenue generating process. And social selling is going to be a big, big part of that efficiency strategy. So you heard it here first. We'll see how it plays out.
So we're going to watch this again in December, and
Yes.
we'll see how we prognosticated today.
Yes.
I think you nailed it, and I'd like to actually look at James's question real quick because I think it's interesting, right? And maybe maybe James, you can elaborate just a little bit because I just what's the end goal you're looking for? I'll talk a little bit of how I use ChatGPT in customer scenarios, but it's very similar to what Tom just outlined because here's the thing: it's a numbers game, and I don't use that in a way that takes lightly the fact that it's a relationships game. Number of relationships is the key driver here, but it's quality relationships that I can create and cultivate. And so, we talk a lot on this show about how you can control the quality of your outreach, the quantity of outreaches, and then just your consistency of execution over time. When I'm using GPT, it could be a number of things. I mean, I could ask it, if these are the outcomes I'm trying to drive, like I'm trying to get a meeting to discuss X, Y, Z, or maybe I'm taking a recent announcement or a post that my target customer has made or whatever it is, and I'm feeding that into the engine, and I'm basically saying, based on this, write me an email that will land this meeting. And then, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of massaging that goes into that. What I'm often looking for is I may be using for like a key sentence or two that's kind of the catalyst or the driver of that email. I never want to replace like my pleasantries that I make or maybe any personal allusions that I'll make to their profile or something that I know about them or whatever it is. I think the key element is using that GPT outcome as a springboard into, okay, help me articulate or massage kind of the key, some of the crux of this messaging. Or it could be, hey, based on this company. I mean, there's a lot of companies that are out there that you can just ask them, like, what are potential use cases of, my organization working with this organization? And it's kind of like today. I asked ChatGPT to give me 20 dad jokes. I picked one. I mean, some of them were horrible, right? So you want to almost cast the widest net possible so that you can get some nuggets that just enhance your game a little bit. Because if I go from writing C plus or B emails and I can go to a B plus or an A, guess what? The chance they respond becomes a lot greater. Now, you said, you kind of elaborated a little bit more, James. You said in general, or kind of what prompts do you use? Hopefully that's helpful. A lot of times I make sure that I'm very specific about what I feed the engine. And frankly, I don't have it write a ton of emails for me. I'll give you an example. So a lot of our calls, conversations may be recorded, or I may take notes, or I may have a long, elaborate email or a long, elaborate set of notes from a meeting, and I need to do a follow-up. And so I may feed them into the engine, and I'll summarize this into bullet points for me, or prioritize this based on, I do kind of a weird chicken scratch because I type very quick, but I'll do, my stuff's all over the place. So having it organize things and just say, hey, organize this in a way that that makes sense from a prioritization perspective, or give me bullet points on this, or write me an email that will start a conversation about this. If I'm inviting a customer to an event, we talk a lot about building community. I may take the page, the registration page, copy all the information and say, write me a note that would invite this customer to this event. And what I'm looking for is kind of that summary output. And what I like about it is you can be very specific. Write me one sentence, write me 2 sentences, write me 3 sentences summarizing this message. And then I can build the meat on the bones around it. And I think that's where the AI complements my process, makes me better because it summarizes things very quickly, as opposed to me just sitting there burning brain cells while I get pelted with 20 instant messages. So that's how I use it. Try to be very specific. And the cool thing is you can play around with how you ask it and continue to learn and grow. I haven't solved all of it yet, but that's kind of the beauty of it, is that it learns and we learn.
Yeah. And I think, there's one end of the spectrum, right, where people just try and use it for an automatic, I'm going to do something and I send it out and I don't think about it. If you use it as a tool to optimize what you would normally do anyway, then the quality of what you're going to get is going to be better. And I try and use it that way, as a way to optimize, kind of, put me on steroids, I hope. So what I would do normally, can I do it much better by using that? And I know you probably got some movie stuff going through your head as I say that, but even through the fog, I can see that, Carson. But
you're good, Tom. You know me too well by now.
Yeah. But I do think that you brought up community a couple times. That's going to be my second prediction. I believe that by the end of the year, community and the way that you build community and companies that build community, it's certainly a very efficient way for building pipeline and building, even dealing with existing customers. I do believe, and I'm not just talking about like LinkedIn, but even private communities and things along those lines is going to be a very, very important part of the selling strategy. But I think it aligns very what I said earlier about just overall efficiency. It's, you're going to spend time to build relationships with people, keep building the relationship, let others build the relationship, use others to do that. That's very efficient. And then you have a really big pond to be working in and talking with and working with people as you go forward. So that's my other prognostication for this year, for the remainder of this year.
I think you're dead on. I mean, anytime you have significant change, you have a pendulum, right? And so you're going to see some people gravitate toward I'm going to do all automation all the time, and I'm not going to give it a second thought. And that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. And then you're going to have the best rise to the top using this in a way that augments what they already do, puts them on steroids, and helps them build better communities. And what do you think is going to win?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll have to hold Brandon's prediction for a future show. That's good. That'll lead us on. And yes, we'll play this at the end of the year and see how drastically right or wrong we are. So
I have a feeling you'll be very right.
Okay. I'll tell my wife that. Thank you. All right. Anything else, Carson, before we wrap up today? Thank you for everybody. Great questions.
Yeah, I don't think so. Really, I love the engagement in the chat today. Thank you, everyone, for showing up big. We're all on this journey together, learning. These tools are new to us, right? So we're figuring them out with you. And I just think it's really fun to get to spend this time together and explore what's possible around social selling. So thank you.
Yeah, and if you haven't joined already, please join our community, Modern Seller HQ, modernsellerhq.com. Carson, I know you're going to be jumping in with a pretty cool role here, or a pretty cool space in the community soon. We've got some others coming in here, so we see that really, really growing as well. So if you haven't joined, it's free, modernsellerhq.com, and become part of the party. All right, Carson, take us home.
Tom, thank you. Audience, thank you. And until next time, episode 32, happy social selling.